What if the end of the world was only the beginning? After all, the fall of humanity is ripe with storytelling possibilities. So why are most post-apocalyptic worlds boring dead ends? Instead of brown and gritty wastelands populated by grim, cynical loners, what if the fall of civilization led to something hauntingly beautiful? Or even inspiring. Post-apocalyptic settings can be an exciting, wide-open creative canvas, but so many world builders fail to take full advantage of them, and instead they tend to settle for a tired retread that smacks of Mad Max and Fallout. I'm Janet from World Anvil, a professional world-building consultant, published author, and game writer, and I've helped countless writers and game masters craft compelling post-apocalyptic settings. So let's dig into how to create a post-apocalyptic world that goes beyond the usual tropes of raiders and radiation. Picture this. A deer steps delicately through an abandoned shopping mall. Sunlight dances through the shattered skylights, illuminating saplings pushing through cracked linoleum. Vines cascade down stilled escalators that haven't rolled in decades. And this isn't just pretty fantasy. It's already happening in places like Pripyat, an abandoned city that served the Chernobyl power plant. Here, nature has transformed a nuclear disaster zone into a thriving wilderness. And scientists have even discovered a fungus there that eats radiation. It could eventually offer protection from fallout and a renewable energy source. The world is amazing, guys. The key to a captivating post-apocalyptic setting isn't just destroying the old world, it's showing how life adapts and thrives in unexpected and intriguing ways. This stuff is as magical and hopeful as well as fascinating. And as storytellers, it's a great way to embrace a new kind of apocalyptic future, beyond the tired old tropes. And it's not just nature that recovers itself. Humans are social creatures, and too many apocalyptic settings seem to completely disregard this. In fact, although one of the most common post-apocalyptic tropes is the grizzled lone survivor, it's probably the least realistic element of the genre. Humans are inherently social, and historically our success as a species has always hinged on our ability to cooperate. Humankind, by Dutch historian Rutger Bregman, posits that early humans took over the world in a state of survival of the friendliest. I freaking love this, by the way. Despite what most survivalist content will tell you, the best strategy for actual survival in a primitive world is having other people to help you. We're simply not built to thrive as lonely hermits. In fact, even those with decades of wilderness survival training routinely cannot eke out enough calories and resources by themselves. And that's before we even talk about the mental health impact of prolonged isolation. The most overlooked aspect of post-apocalyptic world building is a hopeful community. Yes, the old world is gone, but humans are remarkably adaptable. New traditions, new art forms, and adapted ways of living will emerge. New communities and societies will form, and they'll create their own new cultures too. Maybe they build hanging gardens in abandoned skyscrapers. Perhaps they develop new festivals celebrating survival and rebirth. The end of our civilization doesn't have to mean the end of civilization itself. What the future of humanity, or whatever species you're writing about, looks like is ultimately up to you. You should map out how your cultures evolve across different eras, from the world before the catastrophe, through the collapse, and into the fascinating new societies that emerge from the ashes. You can use World Anvil's timeline feature for that. It's a great way to visualize and develop the ongoing changes of a living, breathing civilization as it grows and develops. Imagine, it's 1,000 years after the fall of an ancient civilization, and you find this. What would you figure it is? Perhaps a holy relic from the ancients, an object for shearing sheep, a child's plaything. And if you think I'm being obtuse, it genuinely happens that archaeologists find artifacts that seem to defy explanation. For example, I made a whole video about the mysterious Roman D20 dodecahedron artifacts, and we have literally no idea what they're for. Maybe your new civilization preserves fragments of old world knowledge as sacred texts, or develops entirely new belief systems around the ruins they inhabit. Imagine their interpretation of everyday objects, like an egg slicer or an iPhone. They'd seem like bizarre artifacts inviting myths and legends. The role-playing game Numenera handles this idea very well, with a lot of the game's focus being on understanding and misunderstanding ancient technology. And there are loads of other examples of this too. Drop your favourites into the comments of your own misinterpreted or mystery artifacts, either from real life or fiction. And speaking of the mysterious, Here's what most post-apocalyptic stories get wrong. They explain too much. The moment you exposition dump exactly how the world ended, you lose the haunting power of the unknown. And even if revealing this is your ultimate goal for your setting, you definitely don't want to do it too early or too definitively. Think about how archaeologists piece together ancient civilizations from fragments. That's the experience you want to create for your audience, letting them discover the past through ruins, artifacts, and unreliable legends. Allowing them to imagine and theorize is half the fun. Some of the most compelling moments in post-apocalyptic world building come from suggesting what happened rather than stating it outright. A child's doll in a luxury bunker. A final message carved into a wall. These small details tell more powerful stories than any exposition dump. So sure, let your heroes put together smaller mysteries about those who came before if that's the kind of story you're trying to tell. But leave the really big things and the details in the shadows. To dive deeper into building the myths and legends of your post-apocalyptic world, you can learn how ancient cultures created their origin stories in my video on Mythopoeia in world building. Go watch that. Now, grab your hammer and go world build.